Oh my, I've been in public education for 45 years and was a teacher for 27 of those years, and the rest of the time at the National Science Foundation, the Public Education Department in Santa Fe, and here in the Las Cruces Public Schools as the Deputy Superintendent.
Okay, and just tell us a little bit about what's gone wrong, what's gone right with education.
Well, I can tell you what's right with public
Okay.
education, and I think it's still the innate dedication of our teachers. I think we still have some phenomenal teachers that are in classrooms. I think they have, and part of, and then I'll go back to what's gone wrong with public education. But what's right is some great teachers. And I think the piece that's gone wrong is that we have somehow, as an educational enterprise, convinced teachers that there are so many external things to assess the quality that we sometimes have ignored, that it is not the external pieces that assess the quality, but it's actually the interaction between adult and a child and the outcomes that the adult can see on a daily basis with those kids. So what has gone wrong? We've actually removed, through a lot of reform efforts, the thrill and the enjoyment of teaching real children. And we've gone to a very standardized curriculum that is only assessed through a standardized measure, one measure that tells us whether we're doing well or not. I think a lot of the data that are coming out on public education today are solely based on a single measure. When they say New Mexico is 50th in education, or 48th or 49th, whatever we are, we always seem to hover in those bottom three numbers. It doesn't tell us about the richness that's going on in a lot of classrooms across the state of New Mexico today. I can tell you from my own experience here in Las Cruces Public Schools, you can walk into classrooms, you can see teaching going on, you can see traditional modes of education, you can see very experimental modes of education. And that's not what's important. What's important is how a teacher can communicate with the child and bring light into that child's eyes so they can start to continue, so they can explore. That's what's right about public education, and we need to get back to those conversations. And we need to get away from the conversations that tell us because you didn't do well on one test, the entire system is a mess. And I just disagree with that. I'll talk about my own classroom that I had last year, because it was very much patterned against the JUMP program, or what we did here with the Joint Ungraded Multi-Age Primary in K1 and 2. I actually had the opportunity, the marvelous opportunity, to fall in love with teaching again. So I taught for 9 months.
Where?
In the Los Lunas Public Schools, in what's called their family school. This was a 3-classroom school, 1st grade through 8th grade, and there were 3 teachers who took care of the 1st through the 8th grade kids. I had the 6th, 7th, and 8th graders in a multi-age setting, and I was responsible to teach mathematics and English, and the parents taught science and social studies.
Oh my word.
The other half of the week. So these were homeschooled children who came back to public school for 2.5 days of formal education in the system. And
how many students?
I had 12 kids, Monday and Tuesday all day, and Wednesday they went home at noon, and then I could get back to being a retired person, which basically was filled with, those days was filled with lesson planning, grading papers, and doing all of the things that our regular teachers do, except they have to teach for 5 days. I had the extra time to do it so I could be a little more relaxed about it. But it was ungraded in mathematics, and I'm going to tell you the power and the beauty of that system. So I was teaching a group of 7th and 8th graders, a small group. I had 6 or 7 of them in that group, and we were learning about linear equations. And I was the type of teacher that always liked to get kids to engage in conversation with me about what they saw. And I would try to get them to take pieces apart, like we would take a puzzle and put the pieces together. I wanted them to pretend that it was a puzzle, but we were going to take the pieces apart and see if there were pieces that looked very familiar to us. So as we put the puzzle back together, kids could start to connect prior knowledge with new knowledge. And so we were having these rich conversations on linear equations with some 7th graders and 8th graders. And there were some 6th grade students, and we never referred to each other as 6th, 7th, and 8th, but I'll do it for clarification. So there were some 6th grade students who were working on Khan Academy. They had some things that they had to do, and it was very, very nice because they could be on the computer and I could be working with another group, and they were in their math center. And they had self-selected some topics, and this one young man kept looking over and listening to our conversation. And finally I asked a question. I don't remember what the question was, but that's not what was important. And the 6th grader's hand goes up. And he says, I have an idea about how you might do that, or what's making that work. And I said, would you like to come and join the conversation? And he said, I'd love to. And then the other kids, of course, not wanting to be left out, the other 4 that were sitting at the computer, they wanted to come over too. So as a group of 12, 13, and 14-year-olds sitting around the chalkboard, and literally it was a chalkboard, talking about linear equations, which was an upper level skill in the Common Core standards. I mean, it was pretty high up there. And I had 6th graders interacting with 7th graders and 8th graders all across the board, and they said, can we just learn how to do linear equations? And I said, sure you can. I welcome you. That's the beauty of multi-H. Those young kids, those 12-year-old, had they not been engaged or at least allowed to listen to a conversation about higher level mathematics, would have never attempted to do such a thing in a 6th grade, in a traditional 6th grade math class. The same thing happened in Jump.
Mm-hmm.
It was just about reading, or it was about mathematics. But that really brought it home to me that teaching in a multi-age setting has such powerful benefits, or it can have powerful benefits for the learners if the teacher constructs the learning in an appropriate way, so kids can be drawn to the content, not this is what I have to do today. And so they can make some choices. And I saw that time and time again in the multi-age setting with my 6th, 7th, and 8th graders. I would let them select the material that they wanted to read together as a group. And again, there were 12 of us, so 3 would select the novel that we were going to read every month. And it could be any novel. I didn't care what Lexile level it was. I wanted it to be something that they would be interested in, so we could have good conversation about it. And actually that would result in my kids having some purpose for writing something. They're reading something that they're interested in. We're talking about stuff that we're interested in. Hopefully their writing would be something that they were interested in. So we tried to connect all the pieces, and it was quite nice.